I took the MCAT actually 4 times within that period. I took my first MCAT right before COVID and my last MCAT right after COVID. COVID hits and my test gets delayed and rescheduled 5 different times.
Welcome to the Physician Pharmacist podcast, a show designed to shed some light on a very unusual pathway into medicine. I'm your host, Nathan Gartland, and I'm a former pharmacist and current anesthesiology medical resident. I'm also the author of PharmD to MD and the owner of the Physician Pharmacist Company. As this podcast has grown, we've had the tremendous opportunity to broaden our scope and explore other non-traditional healthcare careers. Tune in to hear from our non-traditional experts serving at the frontier of medicine, technology, and innovation. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with future Dr. Kartik Goswami, a fourth-year medical student at California North State University College of Medicine, and the visionary founder of The Doctor Journey. Kartik is not only dedicated to pursuing a career in medicine, but also passionate about empowering others through the means of education. His platform offers personalized resources and tutoring services designed to help medical students excel, including USMLE Step 1 and 2 preparation, as well as COMLEX support for our osteopathic peers. Excitingly, the Doctor Journey is now exploring the integration of AI-powered tutoring, aiming to revolutionize the way medical students learn and thrive during their training. I'm really looking forward to today's episode where we get to explore some of Kartik's roots, ambitions for healthcare, and life as an entrepreneur. Welcome to the show, Kartik. Happy to have you.
Thanks, Nathan. Thanks for having me here.
Great. Well, let's get into it. Where are you from and what education did you receive before going to medical school?
Yeah, so I'm from Stockton, California. I've been in Central California most of my life. I went to California North State University. So I went there for my undergraduate, which was 3 years. And now I'm doing my medical school at California North State University as well. I was part of the 3+4 BSMD program.
Wow, that's really interesting. So you did all of your undergrad in 3 years. And then did that include having to take the MCAT as well?
Yes. So technically, the truth is I was supposed to do it in 2 years. But I didn't get the MCAT score requirement to move on. So I spent another year to get that score and do just more elective classes, you could say. I was basically done in 2 years of all the prerequisites I needed. And then the third year was just elective stuff. And yeah, I took the MCAT. I took the MCAT actually 4 times within that period. I took my first MCAT right before COVID and my last MCAT right after COVID. So if you want to dive into that, I have
Yeah,
a whole story on that.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think 4 times. Wow, you must
Yeah.
be a masochist or something. Well, let's get into it. What happened with the first MCAT?
Yeah. So I was taking my MCAT 1.5 years into undergrad. So I was halfway through OChem and I already told myself and my family, I'm going to give up on OChem and just study MCAT. That was my goal. My goal was to get a flat 70 in OChem and just study MCAT because that was the hardest class I was taking at the time. The rest of them were easy to get like high grades in. So I'm studying, I'm doing okay. My scores are going up practice tests, but it's still not at that threshold of a 510 that I needed on practice tests. I got up to a 508 on a practice test. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to give it. And in the back of my head, I was like, I think I'm going to have to do this twice. And I was like, I'm just going to go give this attempt, see how it goes. And I go give my attempt, so much OChem on there. I didn't know any of the chem section. And then give my results back, it's a 507. And to be honest, I wasn't disappointed. I was like, okay, that's around where I was scoring anyways. I need a 510. 3 points isn't hard. Everyone at my school, all the advisors are like, you're going to get those 3 points. You just need to hammer in that stuff. So I go back to studying. I'm studying again and again. And then COVID hits. And my test gets delayed and rescheduled 5 different times.
Wow.
Yeah. And then once they open up the test dates, they say, oh, it's a new format, much shorter. It's a different section lengths, different time lengths. And I know for some people that's not a big difference because it was shorter, but for me, I'm a person that likes everything on the dot timing. So I had to adjust all my practicing for it. And the spot I got was in Nevada. So I had to drive a day before to a different state to take the test. So my second attempt. I did that. I got a 506 on that second attempt because I went down a point. And then I spent that summer. I'm like, okay, now I have to stay another year. They won't let me matriculate forward to med school. So I'm like, okay, since I have this third year here, I'm going to spend this whole summer, get everything down, get a private tutor. Shout out to MCAT Mastery, get that private tutor from them, and then go do well. Again, it's a COVID shortened test, but this time I got it near my home city, somewhere in Sacramento, and I went out, got a 507. I mean, I think this one was a 508. So again, in that same area.
Oh my
And I'm
goodness.
like, I totally gave up on this. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm just going to apply DL schools only. Um, and I'm going to see if they make an exception for me in my own CNE school. Sometimes they do. Just as I'm about to like call it for sure quits and email the dean, be like, I'm not taking MCAT. Can you please consider me? My dad convinces me. He's like, just do it one time. You're free. You're getting accepted to these other DO schools. So you already have schools. Just go take it and see what happens. So this time I studied, but this time I studied in more freedom, relaxed, kind of just touched stuff here and there, nothing special. Went and take the test a full year after that first attempt. This time COVID's done with their special test. It's a full length test, normal timing. Go take the test, come back with a 514. Like, all right, cool, done, got my score, move on to senior med school. That was it.
Wow. I mean, the fact that you started taking the MCAT within like your first or second year of college is also like impressive in and of itself. And you still got a 507, I think was your first score. I mean, that's a great score to get into like most osteopathic programs. So, wow, good for you. And then obviously having the I guess like grit to stick with it for 4 times. I don't know if I would have been able to do that. I took it twice. And so my first one was I didn't even study. You know, I got my score back and it was a 497. And I was like, oh boy, I thought my pharmacy career would kind of carry me through. The second time I took it was a 510. And that was kind of like right at the national average at the time. So I was like, all right, let's see where we can go with this.
And then a hard exam. It comes out of nowhere.
And I'm sure we'll explore this a little bit further when we talk about like your business and stuff. But like, I think when I was taking the MCAT, I didn't appreciate how important it was to kind of building those mental muscles where you have to sit and actually prepare and study, like not just over like a few days, like cramming in undergrad. You actually have to do this for months at a time. And that's so important, like having the hindsight looking back to actually like doing well on your actual boards, like the USMLE and the COMLEX. So I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that.
I have a lot of thoughts on that. That's exactly what I try to tell everyone in our doctor journey's current state, the previous state. You got to do practice tests in the real simulation. You got to do an exact timing, got to have your breaks on time. I even tell people eat the same food you're going to eat on test day. So you're emulating that same digestion, that you're getting the same energy you're going to get. And on your practicing, when you're doing practice questions, just blocks at a time, you got to have a time structured. So you're ready to bang it out on test day too. Just emulate as much as you can on the real day. I was trying to tell people that. It's one of the biggest points I have.
Absolutely. Well, without getting too far off there, and we'll explore that in a little bit, but I'm curious to know, like getting back to your backstory, what prompted you to go into medicine in the first place? Why did you want to go into medicine?
Sure. So my parents are both in healthcare. So it's always been something that's like been the number one spot, but there's been like, I could say physicist, engineer, all that kind of stuff on number 2, number 3 spot. But I guess I did this program in high school. It's called decision medicine. It's basically where you shadow a bunch of doctors for 2 weeks. Like you go in a group of like 15, 20 students. You go all around the county, shadow different hospitals, offices, doctors. And a lot of them stuck with me, and I actually really, really enjoyed it. I will be honest, I don't enjoy the studying part of it at all. I don't enjoy learning the material, but I really enjoy the patient interaction. I love talking to people, understanding their problems and trying to make a solution. That's like my favorite part about medicine. And that's something that's always been something that I really enjoy. And that's why I was like, okay, I can see myself in this career. I already know I have a familiar background of it. I know what's going to be good, what's going to be not what's not going to be good for me. So going forward with this, I was like, I need to go and do this. This is a career that fits who I am, I think, of personality wise and what I actually enjoy. And I can still pursue other avenues because I think medicine is a very open field. You can do whatever you want outside of medicine.
That's awesome. And like building on that, what has medical school been like for you?
Medical school has been one of the toughest times for me, I would say. just personally growing, I would say the undergraduate I went to was much easier, or maybe this is for everyone, but my undergraduate versus medical school was an exponential leap. It was huge. The first year was super hard, and then I had some physical problems. I had a hernia that happened as well, so I had to have surgery, figure that all out during my first few months. All in addition to like figuring out how to study. I failed one of my midterms on my second block. I was like, whoa, what's happening? It was crazy. Med school has been all adapting for me, and it's never stopped. Even my second year adapting how to study for a step. We can go into that later, but I started with like a 35%, like a 146, my first one, and then had to work my way up to pass. And same for step two.
Yeah, it's truly like drinking out of a fire hose, right? Like
Oh,
that's the analogy everyone utilizes, and it's definitely a lot of volume. I think the nice part for me was that having gone to pharmacy school beforehand, that kind of bridged me a little bit in the sense that like I'd done a little bit of grad school, so I wasn't in like the undergrad phase at that point in time, and so I think it made my transition a little bit easier, but like it still is awful. Either way,
it's
you kind
awful.
of
Yeah.
spin it. So. And so talking through each year of medical school, like what
Yeah,
does each year typically consist? And I know this is going to be different for all programs like across the
for
country,
sure.
especially since some are switching to hybrid models here and there. So I'm curious to know like what was your kind of setup for medical school education like?
Sure. So mine was right after COVID, so everything in person. We just had to wear masks for the first few months. But first year was pretty much just going through the courses, foundations, team, MSK, neuro, cardio, pulm. Those are the main ones we did first year. Um, and for me, that was just learning how to study, how to absorb the material, how to do practice questions, how to prepare for the tests. Our school did NBME tests, so they used old step one questions for their tests and stuff. So basically, I was trying to use third-party resources as much as I can to help study for it. I think by the second half of the year, I was getting a little bit of refined. But for me, I'll be honest, it was hard for me to pass. I was just going for the pass every single time. Sometimes I did get that high pass, but my goal was to, minimum pass because it was really hard for me to understand the material and put it out on tests. Moving on to second year, I think the first half of second year was the best time, yeah, in med school almost. I was chilling because I knew how to study. I figured out how to kind of, you could say, game the system in a way, as I was like able to get high passes or end passes without too much effort. Um, I did a lot of things like for fun. We had soccer clubs and just met up with people all the time. And then Thanksgiving break hits the second year. I'm like, all right, time to get serious. Let's start studying for STEM. And my step was scheduled for April. So in November, I started. And then in December, I took my first practice test, got a 146 on it, and passing is 196. And I was like, all right, so a lot to hunker down. December, January, March, February, in the middle of that. All were just straight up grinding and grinding. I failed one of my anatomy exams, so I had to redo that in the middle of that. But besides that, I was just grinding and grinding on step. And that was really hard for me because it was I had to relearn all of my med school material and most of the stuff I didn't know really. So I had to use these third-party resources, especially Sketchy, with all that stuff. Added those in, got the pass, and then had a month and a half to break. Went to Miami, saw the F1 GP, enjoyed, relaxed, took a vacation basically for a while. Came back, and third year starts. Third year at the beginning, I really enjoyed the clerkship parts. I think that was exactly what I always wanted, in person, physical with patients, talking to them, helping them figure out stuff. It was just the shelf exams that made it super stressful because I didn't know how to study at first. I was getting like 10 or 20% school world daily. I was like, how do I pass this? And then I just figured out a system for me, which was literally doing every question, every podcast, every slide I can find. That was the only way I could figure out how to pass. So I was doing that all year long. And then come December of third year, all right, back to the grind, step two. Take my first practice test on January 1st, 2024. I believe it was exactly a 146 on this one as well. And my goal was to get a 250 on step two. I was over 100 points off. So January, February, March, April, and most of May, pure grinding, even during clerkships, doing every resource I can find, especially Divine Intervention, amazing resource. And then May 25th, 2024, take it. get a 252. So I got up to over 100-point gain from my first test within a span of like 5.5 months. And then, went on the fourth year sub-Is, much more relaxed, no shelves to study for. It's me and the patients and the team. Enjoyed. I am now, so that's what I'm applying for now. Did my sub-Is, doing my interviews. Actually, I think I finished all my interviews as well now. So yeah, that's kind of been all 4 years.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that comprehensive list of basically every event that occurred during medical school. And so for our listeners, just to kind of summarize it, so the first 2 years are like your didactic portions. Some programs are a little shorter, and that is what you were sharing is probably like your least favorite time period ever.
Yeah.
For our non-traditional applicants too, I think that was definitely a harder period of time just because you're going back to some of this routine, basic biology stuff that you might not have seen in years, and it's much less clinical, at least until you hit that second year. And that's when things start getting interesting, and that's when you're actually getting ready for boards. So studying for boards like USMLE 1 and 2, not so fun, but it's necessary. And before you are able to go on to your third year, you have to pass your step 1 exam or complex, which is the osteopathic equivalent. And so generally speaking, to kind of to summarize it all, everyone says that third year is usually the worst year from a hours and amount of time worked perspective. They say then next in the ranking is first year because it's the adjustment period. And then they say the second year is like the kind of the third ranking spot just because, you're kind of indifferent with it. And then obviously fourth year is the best time because you're on vacation for most of it. So yeah, that's probably another concise way to put it. But so anyways, so you're at the tail end now of your cycle, and what you mentioned that you're applying to internal medicine, and you just finished interviews. So without sharing too much information, what are you looking forward to most about, the programs that you had, and what were interviews like?
Sure. So what I'm looking forward to the programs the most I had is a program that kind of fits who I am in a sense that where I can learn a lot, but at the same time not be overworked. I know a lot of people say that nowadays, but my reason for not being overworked is I want to be doing the doctor journey and these other things I have on the side as well, as much as I can. During residency, I know it's super hard with the busy schedule, but I want a program that's fair where I'm allowed to learn everything I need to know in medicine, while at the same time having time for myself to work on those other things as well, because they're important to my well-being as well. So looking for a program kind of in that type of area, I do have a couple options that are pretty decent options. Not sure where I'm going to be ranking them yet. It's still confusing, but the interview process has been kind of very formulaic, I would say. I prepared for one interview really, really well. And ever since that, I kind of went through every single question that I could ask. And I've been ready for the rest of the interviews, just prepping those same questions and the same format. I feel like if anything, I've become worse during the interview trail because I'm being more lazy. And my prep, I would just say every time before I go on an interview, like even sometimes the morning of, right before, 10 minutes before, I'll go watch some YouTube videos, research the program, understand all their details, and be like, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to go into the interview knowing their details, then go interview with them, the standard questions. And then when I ask them questions, I already have some detailed questions to ask them about their program. So I feel like it's super formulaic for me right now. But I don't know if that's for everyone, but I think that's how it is for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually have a YouTube video that's coming out that's going to be talking about the residency interviewing process and, some tips on how to excel. But you're definitely right. It's not rocket science. And B, there is such thing as interview fatigue where I was the same way. The first interview, I was spot on. I didn't miss a step. And then by the end of it, I was so burnt out. I was so tired of interviews that I, would barely say anything in the resident meetings and the group, the happy hours and stuff. So without, getting into the details of all of that, but it's definitely something that I think a lot of people start to fatigue as the time goes by. Well, good. So it sounds like you're making the most of your fourth year. And I think this is a good time to transition and talk a little bit about, what you're doing to occupy your time. And let's dive into the doctor journey specifically. So with this business that you've started, what prompted you to even consider it in the first place?
So I started this in 2021, right after I passed my MCAT or 514 on it. And the reason is, and I think it still holds today, is I feel like I do things in my or we could just say education space in general, because this was my story for safety as well. But I start at the very low end on everything, and I end up getting a little bit above average or above average on things through weird techniques, just working hard and just, I don't know, doing random things and figuring out how what works and what doesn't. And I feel like through that, I hope to inspire other people, because there's a lot of people out there that also struggle a lot, but some people just don't put in the work, or sometimes don't have the hope. They feel like it's not worth putting in the work because it's going to be worthless. They are just scared of the whole process. And so I kind of started out being like, I want to be this beacon of light for other people, give them hope that they can do it and go forward. That was the initial 2021. So I started a blogging website, got some peers together, started blogging on it, put a lot of stuff out there for motivational people who liked it, even promoted what a DO school is. People are so confused. And I was telling them DO schools are really pretty good, in my opinion. Actually, they're better than MD schools, I would say, because of the osteopathic manipulative medicine component. They do that plus everything MD schools. Sure, in the whole stigma of things, MDs are known as better, but in terms of schooling, I think they get a little bit better schooling. So we just talk about stuff like that. And then middle of med school, we continue it on. We get new team members on. Everyone's doing blogging every week. We have a whole schedule, got YouTube videos coming and stuff. And then after that, I kind of reached out to MCAT Mastery, the people who tutored me. And I was like, hey guys, I'm down to help you guys. I have this Doctor Journey website where we help people with their everything to get into med school. And I know you guys only do MCAT, so I'm willing to help you guys. And then they respond. I kind of joined them on their admin for a year and a half, 2 years. And so the Doctor Journey goes ghost for that while, because I'm with them, I'm contracted with them, and then everyone on my team didn't move on. MCAT Mastery didn't want them to come on, and they gave up too. So, but then during that whole process of MCAT Mastery, they became MedLife Mastery because they wanted to do everything now. So I helped advise them, give them tips on stuff, and even tutor for them. And then I still had this urge. I was like, I want to go back to the Dr. J. I want to go back to when I started. I want to help people the way I want to help them, because MedLife Mastery, no matter how good it is, and they are really good, it's found by people who aren't in medicine currently, or never were actually. And it's based on a community of people in medicine, not the founders themselves. And I was like, I believe I could do this. In my way, being someone in medicine, I can figure out better ways to do all of this. And so I go back, get out of the contract, restart the Doctor Journey. And this time I wanted to have it done in a way where I'm giving back to people in medical school, because medical school is even harder for me than those MCAT times. I wanted to help them, give them hope for step 1, step 2, their shelves, their clinical tests, preclinical tests, all of that. And on top of that, I wanted to dive into bringing new technology into medical education, which we could dive into in a little bit. So yeah, that was the purpose. And the goal is to make medical education more accessible, affordable, and achievable for everyone. Because if we have such a shortage of doctors in America, and we're not even able to take in FM and IMGs because they're not scoring the right amount of scores, we need people to elevate their scores. We need people with knowledge, and we need affordable medical education, because outside of America, people are not able to afford the tutoring that we're able to give here. And on top of that, I believe that AI will be that branch of very affordable, always there tutoring. So that's something we're working.
Wow. I love your message too. It's such a pure setup to why you wanted to get into this business space, where you were struggling to excel. And you always see these YouTube videos get a 528 on the MCAT and stuff, and anyone can do it. And
Yeah.
I feel like that is not the majority of people who end up clicking on that thumbnail. It's the people who are in the 140s range on their MCAT. And I think having a realistic message and showing them hey, this is how I was in your shoes, not, oh, my base MCAT was a 520 and now I got a 528. Yay.
Yeah.
So I think that's really, really cool that you had that foundation. And so I'm curious to know too, that you you actually got real exposure. So you just sent a random email out to the company that you worked with. They were like, wow, this is really interesting. And no one's ever done this before. And they brought you on. So like, what lessons did you learn from that experience? And how did you take those lessons and apply them back into your own business model?
Sure. I think I learned a lot. The CEO is an amazing guy. I really respect him a lot. But he's obviously busy with that whole company, so he wasn't able to teach me much. He offered me a whole marketing course, digital marketing, gave it to me for free. It was like 20, 30 hours worth of content, gave that to me, told me how he kind of set up the business, how he went from literally, he's still not in medicine, went from no experience in medicine, put a tweet out there, gained traction about MCAT tips because his friend was taking MCAT. And it gained so much traction, they just started a whole business. And I was like, wait, if you could do that, you're not in medicine and you're just doing stuff that gains traction, just building off of whatever gains traction. Why can't I, being in medicine, someone who struggled so much, show other people that, hey, we all can do this. Like, I've done this, you can do this too. And personally give them help too. So I took that. I took the lessons of how they kind of, under their email setup, how to launch campaigns, how to offer courses, how to make products, kind of the way they were thinking, because these were just straight business people, no medicine experience. So I took a little bit of what they thought, and I'm bringing that back into how I want to go about these things.
Yeah, it's kind of like the perfect hybrid where you sampled a little bit of the business background, and you also, like, if you were just purely medicine, then you wouldn't be able to create the product without having that experience. Like, you wouldn't have the insight to actually build something that's productive. And so I think that's like the perfect approach in how like you're going to find a niche in that particular space. And I'm curious to know too, like, so what other services does your, platform offer? So before we get into like the AI, like what kind of tutoring services are available to students right now at this moment?
So first off, we have a lot of free resources on there and a very big free resource coming in the new year. We offer like custom schedules that are free off there. You can just download a schedule. You can download resources, a correction tracker to track all your corrections, and tips just how to study really well. Coming this new year in 2025, I am working on a free pass step 1 with ease document. It's going to answer every question or most questions people have about step 1. How do I study? I'll make a schedule, all of that. Plus, it'll have all my notes that I've taken for those 4.5 months of studying, all on that document for every organ system that you need to know, plus stats, plus like all that stuff. So it's going to be a resource that'll have literally everything you need to know. And for step 1, for free, we'll be giving that out for anyone that wants, because we want to make medical education better. On top of that, we do offer some courses and we do offer tutoring. So we're going to be offering we had a seminar a few weeks ago. We have that live recorded, being edited up, and we're going to offer that as a course that people can just download and watch when they need it. It's going to be 7 hours long. It's taught by our tutor who scored 275 plus on his step 2. And he's gone through all the high yield stuff for step 1, like the very, very high yield stuff, and taught that, and it's all recorded. We'll be offering that to people. Plus, we'll be offering them custom schedules. So we have this really detailed form of when they're studying, when their test is, resources they're like, et cetera, et cetera. And then I sit down with all that information to make a custom schedule for every single day, what they need to do. And then we do advising sessions where they can meet with me for 15 minutes, talk about their problems, maybe go through like 1 or 2 questions and we want how to go through it. And we can show them how to do that. I've been doing that for free for so many people for the past few months just to help them out. And then on top of that, our golden offering is the tutoring by our 99% score of step scoring tutors. These guys are like the smartest people I know, and they love teaching. They've taught hundreds of different students, and they're here tutoring. So people who want one-on-one tutoring, we do that.
Yeah, I think it's such like a great business model too, in the sense that like when you're taking the step 1 and step 2 exams, like it is such an isolating process, and you have literally no feedback mechanism to know like where you fall with things. Like, you have a practice test or you have a shelf exam here or there, but like you're kind of operating in a silo. At least that was like my experience where I was like studying for it, and you don't have a ton. It's kind of like taboo to talk about scores and study tips and all this. Like, what are you doing? And it's such a competitive environment because everyone who's standing next to you is competing for the same positions in the future. that
Exactly.
I think there's less of a tendency for students to kind of reach out and help each other. So there's
Exactly.
definitely a huge market need for this particular product that you guys are obviously offering. And I think it's going to do a lot of good where, you alleviate a lot of that stress, a lot of that pressure that like weighs down on a lot of students. And it's coming from people who have lived that experience, which I think is really interesting. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Thank you.
And so with that in mind, like you mentioned a lot of different like team members and part of any successful business is obviously having a efficient and organized team. It's not only just having like the right members on your board, but you have to have them in the right positions as well. And so how did you go about like building this team that you currently have?
Yeah, currently the team is very small, but I think I've learned from my previous time when the doctor journey was there before I joined MedLife Mastery and joining MedLife Mastery and then now coming back to the doctor journey. I've learned you need people that are really trustworthy and very specifically minded for their tasks, like kind of just naturally made for that task. You need those people in those places. So the team is only like 4 of us right now. I'm obviously looking to expand as much as possible, but I'm waiting for those right opportunities. There's been plenty of opportunities to have more people, but if I'm not able to establish that trust with them, I don't trust them, and they seem like, they're just in it for the money, not actually want to do some type of good, it turns me off. It's like, okay, we need quality people in the quality positions. And I guess it just comes from being familiar with that person and trusting that person. Because right now the team is people I've known for many years. And these are people I know their specific strengths and weaknesses. And that's where they're placed. There's one person who's really, really great at teaching and tutoring, literally taught me. He's the head of all tutoring. Put him in that department. One person that's great with writing, has been on newsletter writings for many years in high school, college. Put him on the board for our newsletter, for anything that's, written going out there. He's in charge of that. And then we have someone that's really good with like social media thoughts, figuring out how to do posts and stuff like that. She's in charge of all that stuff. And so, I'm just catering to people's strengths and placing them where they would be best fit, I think is the best way. And I think keeping a team that you trust is probably the most important thing. Because if there's someone that you don't really trust, someone that's shady, they could mess up the whole thing, ruin your whole reputation, and could just cut paint to everyone.
Yeah, I think that's a really efficient and like interesting way that you kind of partitioned out the work and delegated everything. So like, for instance, like as a startup myself here, like I will go and try and do everything. Like, oh, I want to do the newsletter, then I want to go do the website, and then I want to do the podcast recording, and then I want to do all the editing and the media, and then publishing it. Like there are so many steps along that process to just get one episode out. And I end up finding myself getting bogged down doing those things. So I think, I need to take your advice and hire out a team that I think finding someone who's equally as motivated, that's going to be the challenge. So it's
That's
great
the
that
hard
you've
part.
found,
Yeah.
And no one's
And
ever going to be as passionate about the project other than the founder themselves.
I was just about to say, I was like, that's a big problem that I face, that no one has nearly that passion. They maybe at like 10, 20% of what I have. But it's just about using that 10, 20% and just think about one little spot. Just do this, and take care of it. And I'll take care of the rest.
And kind of transitioning too, so let's talk about the next steps for your platform. And you prefaced this a little bit already, but you mentioned that you're exploring the realm of AI tutoring. So like, what does this even mean? And how do you incorporate this into your platform that you already have?
Sure. So I can't get into that specific details about this, but we're working on basically having an AI tutor that hopefully should act as a human tutor would, exactly, teaching someone step 1 and step 2. And the benefits of having an AI tutor over a human tutor is AI is going to be way cheaper. It's going to be available 24/7, and we're trying to offer it for free for people to use, at least for limited uses, so that anyone anywhere in the world, especially FNGs and IMGs that can't afford tutoring but need that tutoring, they can get it. They can get the questions answered. They can understand concepts. They can run through their questions. They can ideally do anything with this AI tutor. So we're working on that with developers closely.
Wow. So do you have like a minimal viable product at this point, or is that still like kind of underway? And did you outsource? Like, for instance, are you doing this yourself or are you hiring developers from like other places?
So we're hiring developers from a local university. They've agreed to work with us. It's master's students and some people who have been in machine learning for past 10 years, worked on many things similar to this. So they're very, you could say, knowledgeable about this. No minimal viable product yet. Yes, we have some like prototypes internally and stuff, but nothing out there for anyone else to use. Hopefully, minimal viable product people should be looking for in April 2025. Something out there for them. And again, it will be free of use for people to use. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm really excited to see where that kind of takes you in your platform. And how did you come up with the idea in the first place?
I was on a car drive to a rotation this year in June, and I was like, wait, I've
Those
never
long
used
car
AI.
rides. Yeah,
I was like, why can't we just, you know, use AI to do what we're doing? I just think it's more efficient and more effective.
of
Yeah.
course. Of course. Well,
And if we can do something for some at a cheaper rate for people, even if it doesn't have that human touch, maybe I think people can still get a lot, at least 85-90% of that benefit.
absolutely. And kind of speaking on AI broadly, I had a podcast episode with Yair Saperstein with Avo MD, and this is episode 28 for our listeners who are curious. But they are building a product that's integrating AI into basically clinical decision making, so into your EMRs, and it's really,
Wow.
really fascinating stuff. So that's just kind of like an example of something that they are actually doing right now in real time. But from your perspective, how do you anticipate AI changing the healthcare landscape?
Huge. I mean, those are things everyone was talking about. Those are things everyone was talking about when ChatGPT came out. They're like, notes are going to be written, scribed for us. Decisions are going to be like, we're going to get a list of decisions we can make just from history. You can have something recording your HCP and not only scribing it down, but giving you ideas what to do next, et cetera, et cetera. There's just, I think, infinite possibilities. And I personally really wanted to dive into that space. But I felt like that was something that's a hard space to get into, especially because there's so much oversight in that space and the clinical setting. And yeah.
A lot
And
of
I think
capital.
it does. I have a little very minute capital which I'm putting into this. And I was like, I'm already in medical education space for many years. And I feel like I can make a difference here. So I'm gonna start here, see where this goes. And then if it goes how I want it to go, then we'll be doing something in the healthcare space, like with clinical setting as well, because I do want to make a difference there. I feel like there's too many problems there. And there's so many problems that almost every doctor can go out and solve their own problems.
Sounds good. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All righty. So we're getting towards the end of our interview, and I think it's time for our final wrap-up questions, also known as our famous three. And so starting out with question number one, how do you maintain some semblance of a work-life balance in your demanding profession? It's probably pretty easy in fourth year, but
Yeah. Uh, this is weird and maybe cliche in a way, but I would say if your work is getting you towards a goal you want to go, and you know you're getting and making progress towards it, it doesn't feel like work then. It feels like something you're doing because you actually want to do it, even if the work is terrible. First 2 years were terrible for me, but it was getting me towards where I need to be. It's made me who I am these third and fourth years, which is finally where I'm doing the things I really like to do too. Um, so yeah, I guess the balance comes in just doing things that make you happy in terms of your work, in terms of your life, hanging out with the people that actually make you feel good. Um, in a way, cutting out the people that are bringing you negative, bringing you down. Doing activities that you really enjoy. I love working out. I really love boxing. So if I'm feeling not good, 10-minute timer, blast music, go box on a bag, feel amazing right after that. Stuff like that. Just do things that make you happy and are moving you toward where you want to be, and you will just feel good automatically.
it's the recipe to success right there. I love it. All righty. Question number two. Do you have any last-minute recommendations to students or graduates interested in pursuing a career similar to your own, whether that be medicine in general or starting their own businesses?
Sure. So in terms of medicine in general, if you guys are going in, I'll be honest, it's a very hard thing to get into, but I'm not discouraging you. I'm telling you, it's very, very doable. It's something, just get your mind to it that I'm going to get through these 4 years. It'll be hard, but it'll get me to that career that's so amazing. I think it's such a great career where you get to socialize with people, you get to help people, you get to hear people's stories. I love talking to old people and just hearing their stories. And, things like that are just so fun. I think it's so worth it. So if you're thinking about medicine, I would say go shadow someone. Go see some doctor. Go shadow someone at the office, at the hospital. Go talk to other med students. I mean, you can talk to me anytime. Nathan can put up my email. You guys can always reach out. And just find people to talk to in medicine. And I think most people that are in medicine in today's era are probably going to be more on the happier side than probably the previous generation. Because there seems to be people who are pursuing more of their passions in medicine now than it was back in the day where it was just kind of like brute force through it. And scary residency hours, terrible everything. Now it seems like something that's, more doable while it's still very hard. It teaches you everything and you get along with what you want to do. In terms of business, I don't know if I'm the best for advice yet since I'm still very, very new in this realm. It's something I've always been so passionate about. But I would say if you have something in mind that you want to do, start out by doing something that you're already good at or already have done, something that you have experience in, because then you have something to fall back on. Like, let's say if the business isn't working and in those hard days, hard times, you can at least go and give advice, tutor, etc., whatever, and something that you're already comfortable in. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm not doing good on the business side, but I'm also don't know what I'm doing on the actual work side too. So kind of do something you already know to start out is what I would say. That's a small advice I have.
Yeah, that's great advice, and kind of brings up another like anecdotal story. I have like another friend who was in the startup phase and had gotten basically pretty far along the phase, but like, pre-seed at this point in time. So they hadn't invested in or raised any capital, but they had invested. And they basically hit a wall and couldn't really get past that point in time without getting too much of the details. But all of that experience that they had, like they went into a niche that they knew very well. So now their business model, instead of marketing the product that they have, is actually in consulting on how to get to that far into the process. So like an early setup or early startup. So, and that's basically their role is now they help people get from point A, like total inception of idea to, point B, which is not too far along the cascade, but that is their little market and that's their niche. So it's just kind of an interesting idea right there where you never know where your business opportunities can kind of roll into. So building on the idea you just shared. Alrighty. And question number 3, what are your personal, professional, or business-oriented goals that you'd like to accomplish in the next 5 to 10 years? And I know you kind of touched on some of this stuff, so I apologize if it's redundant.
No. 5 to 10 years. Get an IM residency done. Hopefully have medical education side figured out where we're helping a lot of people with new technology, making a difference in this space. And by the 10-year point, I'm hoping I am moving on to that clinical setting as well. I feel like I have some ideas and thoughts that I want to help fix in the clinical setting. I think there's going to be, those problems are still going to exist for a while. So I would like to go in that setting and make a difference there.
All right. I love it. Well, we've come to the end of our interview today, and I'd like to thank all of our listeners for the support. If you have any additional questions about the medical school journey, pharmacy practice, or entrepreneurial topics, check out my website at www.physicianpharmacist.com or find us on YouTube at The Physician Pharmacist. Before we let you go, Kartik, how can our listeners get in touch with you or learn more about you?
Sure. So like I said earlier, you guys can email me anytime with any questions. It's the drjourney21@gmail.com. You can just email that anytime you want. You can go check our website, thedrjourney.com, all one word, no caps. And then we also have an Instagram and a YouTube channel. And just type in the Dr. Journey. It should pop up pretty much everywhere. That's how you can find me.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I know you're extremely busy, so I really do appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you for having me.
All righty. Take care.